Welcome to Real Lives Touched by Addiction podcast with your hosts, Jen McCutcheon, Luke Loughlin, Lainey Love, and Sandra Murray. This podcast exists to bring truth, compassion, and real solutions to conversations around addiction that family, communities, and systems have avoided for far too long. Addiction isn't just an individual struggle. It's a family, community, and generational issue. And too many are navigating it in silence, feeling overwhelmed and alone. Through real stories, lived experience, trauma-informed insight, and evidence-based frameworks, we're exploring the most misunderstood truths about addiction and family healing. And you're invited to join us. Listen, reflect, and take a small but powerful step towards real change. So let us begin. So today I want to talk about something I witnessed recently that I think explains what's missing in our approach to mental health and addiction. It's not theory. It's not policy. It's people. Real people sitting in a room together, finally understanding each other. And that's what Real Lives Touched by Addiction is all about. So I thought I would jump on here. I'm here solo today, just to really share my reflection on an event that we, Luke, Sandra, Lainey, and I held, the Real Lives Touched by Addiction community event here in my town in Belleville, Ontario, Canada. And what happened inside that space that reminded me of something I've learned over decades of both living this and studying this. And addiction, honestly and truly is never just the person using substances. And I'm going to take it a step further because it's more than just substance. Addiction comes in many shapes, sizes, forms, you name it, right? We are talking about any form of addiction. And really, anything can be an addiction when we're using it as an avoidance or an escapism. So the truth is, it lives in families. It lives in relationships. It lives in systems. And until we include all of those, recovery really does truly stay incomplete. So I don't just speak about this only as a coach or an educator. I speak about it as a mother, as a partner, as someone who's loved people through addiction and am still loving people through addiction. And as someone who has had to face my own patterns, behaviors, belief systems, the fixing, the overfunctioning, the fear, the emotional survival strategies like enabling and codependency that is really a form of addiction that families develop, right? That I developed. And what I came to understand really truly is this: families aren't codependent because they're weak. They've adapted because they're trying to survive. And families are community, and community is families. So when families are only told to detach, to step back, to wait, to let go, without support, we remove one of the most powerful healing forces available. Families are the cornerstone of recovery. They are the root system of recovery. They are the heart of healing. And that realization led me to years of study. So it's not just my own healing that brought me to this understanding. I was cracked open at a point in my life, and I've talked about it before, and I'll continue to share that the pain birthed me. It cracked me open, and it birthed this new level of awareness, consciousness, an understanding that I couldn't see before. And that's what led me to wanting to know more. And I started to study and train and get certifications and education in many different modalities of healing. Trauma healing coaching, spiritual psychology certifications, studying family systems work, behavioral approaches and change, subconscious mind reprogramming, nervous system regulation, adult education, and many different coaching methodologies for recovery and change. And over time, I saw something so clearly. Education without lived experience lacks trust. And I have heard this, seen it, experienced it myself, heard it from other people who have sat in. This isn't about against therapy or counseling, but there is so many commonalities in how many people I have talked to that have said, I have been in therapy for years. I have sat with doctors and had to educate them on addiction. And it's because they just don't have that lived experience. So education without lived experience lacks trust because you know when somebody knows what you've been through and when they don't. And when you've been to the deepest, darkest corners and somebody else hasn't, they just don't understand. So you lack trust with that person. And lived experience without education lacks structure. So when we bring both together, people finally feel understood and guided. And that's the power of lived experience. That's the power of taking the pain and using it and leading with purpose. That's where real change begins when we can share our lived experience. So it's interesting because this wasn't a realization for me. It was a reaffirmation. It was just a reminder of the message that I've been sharing all along, that it is landing, that people, like I saw it, witnessed it in a room full of people, and it lit me up. Honestly, in a room filled with dignitaries, police officers, paramedics, nurses, family members, youth, people in recovery, grieving parents, and a whole lot of health services providers that were there. And the words we heard collectively, like from Luke, Lainey, Sandra, and I, Margaret, when we caught up with each other later in the evening, was people came to us and they all in different ways, shapes, and sizes basically were saying, you are telling my story. Like you literally told my story. You told my story. And I say it 3 times because it's like that was the truth. People in that room felt seen, they felt heard, they felt understood. There was a connection, so powerful. And there was relief and hope. Because here's what I know: shared story removes shame faster than any information ever can. And when shame drops away, learning becomes possible, and it goes beyond learning. It's about really, truly remembering who we are, and who we are is limitless. When we drop the stories that we have about ourselves, the shame, the guilt, all those things, and we start to remember that me and you, we're not that different. We're actually more the same than we are different. Through shared story, we get to see ourselves in other people and we get to go, oh, well, if they can do it, I can too. It's powerful. The energy in the room was palpable. And people spoke openly. Honestly, it was like music to my ears. We had a breakout session where we went in to where there was all 13, 14 resource tables from our community that were there to offer their services, to bring awareness around what is available in our community. And I walked into this room and the decibel in the room was off the charts. And my heart was full because I've been to events like this where people don't talk. There's this quiet and they walk around and they don't really say much and they're nervous because why? Of fear of judgment. A fear like, oh my gosh, somebody's going to see me here. Oh, I don't really have a problem. I'm here for somebody else. And there's just this block from people finding the help that they need. But no, when I walked into this room, the room was filled with chatter and laughter and conversation, real lives touched by addiction, real stories, raw truth, and an invitation to be part of the conversation of change. And that's exactly what happened at this event. People were speaking openly with other service providers without fear or judgment. Providers were listening to families and individuals, and there was no defensiveness, but like this new understanding of oneness, of collectiveness. We're all one. We are all one. Frontline workers. We had police officers and nurses and paramedics were seen as human beings, not as authority figures. That is prevention. That is recovery. That's what systems alone cannot manufacture. You can't manufacture this. So here's the truth that I want communities to understand. Families are not an obstacle to recovery. This is what I've been saying for so long. Families are the heart of healing. They are the root system of recovery that grows for generations to come. Addiction doesn't exist in isolation. It develops within environments shaped by generational trauma, societal programming, and learned survival patterns that every one of us, every member in a family adopts in different ways or adapts in different ways or adopts, right? It's like implanted into us. So recovery cannot live only in the individual. For healing to last, not just to survive, but thrive, the environment around the person must also evolve within our families, within our communities, within our country, within the globe, right? This isn't about families trying to control recovery. It's about each person doing their own healing. And in doing so, changing the emotional environment around them, increasing safety, regulation, honesty, and hope. It creates an invitation to change. When the environment shifts, the nervous system can settle. Safety. When the nervous system settles, we start to remember our truth. And again, learning becomes possible. And it goes deeper than learning. It's about remembering who the hell you are. And you are beautiful. Learning becomes possible. Recovery can finally take root. This is truly the heart of healing, is the soul recovery, the authentic remembering of who you are, shedding the layers of who you are not, the BS, the belief system, the lies that has been kept families and individuals and communities in suffering. So we're not just supporting a person to stop using. That's like the surface recovery. We're helping a family system to stop suffering. You are the system. That's how we break the cycles. That's how healing becomes sustainable, sovereign, where we don't just survive addiction anymore. We thrive, and we do so for generations to come. We break the cycles generationally and we heal generational trauma. That is freaking exciting, right? So here's the thing. Like, I work with families. I've been working with families and individuals, mothers, fathers, parents, partners, but I also work with organizations because, like I said, it goes beyond the family unit. The systems are all part of this family organization. So I work with organizations. I work with leadership teams, community groups, because I see the patterns everywhere and they're the same. They're just slightly different depending on where that environment is. And people are trying to solve addiction using like one perspective at a time, right? Healthcare over here, schools over here, justice over here, families over here. We're all like broken in our own little silos. But addiction crosses and interweaves and intermeshes throughout every part of our life. And that was what was so beautiful to witness at the event. And the coming together, the breaking down of those silos. And that's what preventative health awareness movement is all about. breaking down the silos and the better together motto to become the CEOs of our health. And addiction is no different. So my role is helping bring the family lens into those spaces, not as blame, but as a resource, because families are the only support system present before, during, and after a crisis, right? Like I say, services close at 5 o'clock, right? I used to always say, like, crisis doesn't happen between 9 and 5, right? It was always like when everything was closed for the weekend and the evenings, and there's no help in sight. Um, treatment programs come to an end and funding cycles change, but throughout it all, families stay. Families are there. So when organizations understand how to work with families, understand families where they're coming from, and be able to work with them instead of around them, the outcomes change dramatically. Powerful. So if you're a parent listening, you're not powerless and you're not the problem. If you're a spouse or you're loving somebody in addiction, impacted by addiction, you're not powerless and you're not the problem. You just haven't been shown your role in a way that supports you too. See, this whole theory that we have to abandon ourselves to love and help our loved one, it's old news, guys, old news. And we also don't have to abandon ourselves to love our loved one, or we don't have to abandon our loved one to love ourselves and help ourselves. So what I always say is, the whole theory of, well, like this is what I was used to be told when they have to want it more than you do, right? Um, they have to hit rock bottom. No. When somebody says to you, there's nothing more that you can do, I say BS and shift the focus back to you and what you can do. And what you can do is heal yourself, do your own inner work your own soul recovery, because we all have a role to play. We're either part of the problem or we're part of the solution, unintentionally part of the problem. And that's where, when you work with somebody like me, and if you're feeling like you're wanting to step into this new role, and that's what I'm always the call to action. When you know that you can do something through changing the way that you're showing up, that's when you are able to really have impact on your own health and well-being and breaking the cycles for your family and for generations to come. So this is just an invitation. You can reach out to me at any point for coaching, for mentorship. You can join the Moms on a Mission community where we learn different ways to show up for ourselves, to break the cycles for ourselves, and in doing so, create an invitation to change. And when we show up for ourselves to protect our peace while supporting real long-term recovery for our family members. And here's the thing, if you're a community leader, an educator, healthcare provider, or organization, this is my call to action. Invite me to the table. I would love to sit at the table and have open conversations to break down the silos and to link arms to create solutions. There is not just one solution. There are many. And I may not have all the answers. I don't have all the answers. I've never said I have all the answers, but I do have insight into solutions that work for families, that are proven track record working for families and communities right now. And I would love to share them with you. I consult on integrating family-centered approaches into programs, teams, community initiatives so that support systems work together, right? Instead of silos. Because honestly, what we saw in the room wasn't accidental. Honestly, it was so beautiful. It was reaffirming the power when we come together. It's what happens when people finally feel seen, where they feel safe enough to understand each other. The energy in the room was palpable. Real lives touched by addiction, the heart of healing, and the root system of recovering. Powerful. So this work isn't about fixing people. It's never been about fixing people. It's about rebuilding connection. And when connection returns, healing naturally follows. When we heal, we rise and we recover better together. Thanks for joining me. Let me know, reach out if you have any insights into an aha moments to what I shared with you today, and you want to be part of the solution to change. If you want the Real Lives Touched by Addiction event to come to your town, shoot us an email. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear your story, and we'd love for you to be part of this conversation. We'll see you next time. Thank you for being part of Real Lives Touched by Addiction podcast. If this episode moved something within you, please subscribe and leave a rating or review. It helps these conversations reach the hearts that need them most. We're also inviting you to connect with us. Our social links are in the show notes. Follow us, come say hi, and share your story. We truly want to hear from you because your story carries wisdom. Your voice carries medicine, and your purpose is already unfolding. Until next time, remember, you are not alone. We heal, rise, and recover better together.